Hello to you. My name is Maria Kądzielska and you are watching Poland Daily Culture. Liberum, veto. You probably heard this phrase many times, but what was the real influence to the situation of Polish country? That will tell us Michał Rzeczycki, a PhD candidate at Warsaw University and also a member of Jagiellonian Club. We were talking about the situation of Poland and Lithuania, the real union, and this phenomenon which comes to the Polish philosophical thought or political thought of Poland, which is a situation when two nations were united and many worked for this to happen and to functionate as well. Even when the other countries were going and falling more and more to the arms of absolutism and the power of the united power in the hands of the king, Poland was becoming more and more democratic. Of course, when it comes to the nobility. And at first it was absolutely modern and our asset, I would say, but then it shifted and ended to be the curse. Why did it happen?
It happened for many reasons. First of them was in the Western countries there were form of feudal hierarchy. So we have
feudal hierarchy.
Yes, you have the king who was in the top. So it was much easier to have a legal interpretation that the king is a sovereign. While the term of sovereignty, I don't think is even mentioned in Polish political thought. There was a term of supreme potestas, supreme power, but it is not the same thing. It could be interpreted as could be understood as just a legal fact. Who's got which office is the highest office? Not in the way that sovereignty is a residuum, is a source of pre-political source of legal power. This is much stronger statement, much stronger claim. While in Poland, the function of the king was perceived as merely as an administrative one. He wasn't the sovereign. So this is why we have this basic difference between Poland and other countries.
So this need of freedom and independence when it comes to Polish nobility showed in every possible way, on every step, starting with their own land, ending in the parliament, and this element of the fact that everyone needed to have their own voice, and they had this I would say element of that you feel very much at home as a king in your own small home and kingdom, was alive and was pushed forward as well, and ended up as in a moment when Poland had a king, but a very weak one, who was bound by the decisions of the parliament, which needed to meet and gather and pass the decisions together.
We must remember that history is a process.
Yeah, of course. I'm not saying from the very
prerogative from 16th century and then limitation of the royal prerogative after were just two different things. We cannot mix it up. One position of the king, yes, it was a little bit weaker. But what was real tragedy was the institution of parliament. The role of the king is often compared to the role of the English kings. I mean, that the government, the sovereign inside the community is the king in parliament. This is the whole body, this is the highest assembly that has a power to decide on everything. I believe that the argument and then suspicion of the nobility that Polish kings wanted more power was completely unnecessary. The government should be centralized, but in parliament, in king with parliament, it shouldn't be played between king and the parliament, because when you have this kind of fight, you have different outcomes. We have Polish outcome when parliament and central institutions become much weaker, and then to the very sad end. You have England when you have civil war, and you have France when parliamentary life is abolished until French Revolution 1789.
So And knowing all those circumstances, you also had an element of Liberum veto. What was this exactly about?
The Liberum veto, I hope I remember precisely the year, it was 1652. One MP decided that he couldn't agree for prolonging the session of Parliament over 1 week more. It wasn't about any essential issues. It wasn't about taxation, waging wars, or something like that.
Just prolonging the sessions of the Parliament.
The law said the terms of Parliament is maximum 6 weeks. If the Parliament is to be prolonged, it has to be voted. The problem with this protest of this single MP was that
he had a very beautiful wife and wanted to come back.
No, probably he was bought. The problem with this protest is that the procedure was about everything that was agreed during the session. So it wasn't about single bill, but everything that was decided. If he protested against everything.
And the Polish Parliament required a full majority. And unfortunately,
sort of full majority.
Yeah, but there was a custom that they just didn't use the Liberum veto. And then one noble guy was bought, and he started to say...
There were previous parliaments that were not concluded. That situation was a precedent because it was the first time when a single MP erupted the session of Parliament, destroyed everything, spoiled everything.
Someone should have shot him.
But there were two guilty people during that time. One of them was that MP, and the second was the Marshal of Parliament, who decided to take this kind of legal interpretation of this protest.
I see, because it was in his power to interpret
precisely
the situation. So it's always the fault of the lawyers.
That was the fault of one MP and other politicians that thought that by acceptance of this protest, Marshal Fredio thought that he would defend the liberty.
And then it became only worse and worse, and we'll tell you more about the Liberum veto in the next episode. And thank you very much for staying with us.